Is it working? Oh, yes, it is. Hello, everybody. Welcome to I Want to Believe. My name is Kathy Rogers. I am one of the co-hosts of I Want to Believe, and I am with my other co-host, brand new co-host, Lynda. How are you, Lynda?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. And I'm so pleased to be a brand new co-host. How exciting is this?
We are so excited to have you. Peter will be with us next week. He just had something to do next week. And I think you said that you couldn't be here next week. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah, which is too bad.
That's okay. But I'll be here the week after. So it's all good.
Perfect. I'm so excited. Yeah, it's kind of nice to, change it up a bit and, everything. And especially with our guests. So, I like bringing on the various guests that we've been having. You were such an amazing guest last week, and we had so much fun. So this week we have a Paranormal Investigator, podcast co-host, and he is was on the TV show Paranormal Survivors as well. We have Mr. Dan Hammond with us today, so we're going to bring him on and say hello. Hang on a second. Let's see, I make sure I do this right. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I was going to pretend I was asleep and or dead.
I keep joking that we need sound effects or something like that. So it'd be like a big, horn or something coming at you or whatever.
There you go. Like those old studio shows where they had like all the
sound effects,
the horns, and
we need that. We need a theme song or something.
That's right.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, if any of your listeners are out there and are aspiring musicians and they want to give you a free little intro and you can plug them on your show, there you go.
And promote themselves, promote the music, promote the show. Like we would be absolutely thrilled for that. So
that's right.
Something nice and kind of, I want to believe-ish maybe, but I wonder if we could steal the X-Files theme. I don't think so. There might be some copyright issues with that, eh?
Well, you could steal I want to be free from Queen and just change it. I want to believe.
Oh, right? There you go.
I like that.
Hey.
There you go.
I like that too.
Get some Freddie Mercury impersonator. So
you and Lynda have known each other for a while, and I was able to meet you, Dan, by you guys bringing me onto your podcast, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. How long have you and Lynda known each other for?
I don't know. You know what? I judge everything by COVID standards now, right? It's like, was it a year before COVID or was it, 2 years before COVID? But I think Lynda was on my podcast, which I will shamelessly plug right now.
Please do, yeah.
It's called the Phantom Faction Podcast. You can find it everywhere, iTunes, Spotify, any podcast hosting site. And I think I was just doing some random searching for guests. And I found the Georgina Paranormal Society on Facebook. And I thought, I should give this lady a dingle. And she ended up being a great guest on the show. It's been a while. She was in the first year, I think. We're in our third year now.
Okay.
And then I got to know Lynda a little bit more. And she had me on her Rogers cable show. And I can't remember. Oh, Georgina, was it?
Georgina Life.
Georgina Life. There you go. Yes. And and Lynda, you also did before the C word, paranormal events at a funeral home.
That's right. Yeah.
And I had a book that I had just completed, and the timing was right. Lynda had me up as a guest, and yeah, I had a lot of fun and sold a bunch of books. And there it is.
Oh, there we go.
Here it is. Look at that.
And if you want, I think you did actually give me the link. So what I'm going to be doing is after the show, I don't know if I put the links in the description box already, but I will be
Okay.
adding them to the description box. So anybody that wants to find Dan's book and also the podcast, all of that, they'll be able to go
Okay.
right to the link and pull it up.
I did have it on Amazon, but I took it off for some goofy reasons, and I'm all sold out. But I will be getting some more, and if anybody wants one, they can let you know or Linda know, or leave a comment and find me. So
that would be perfect.
I'll be getting some more done, and I was just working on another book this evening. So
what's it about?
Busy.
No way. So you're working on book number 2.
Well, I have 2 other books that are done and completed.
Wow.
And because of the C word. They just haven't been published yet. So I'm basically working on my 4th book, and it is a paranormal book as well.
Okay.
Excellent.
So
Excellent. That's great. Well, I can't wait for all of your books to come out, because this particular book, Strange Happenings, was a huge hit because Cathy, he did come to our paranormal meeting. We have public paranormal meetings. We had them.
Right.
We will have them again. Yes, we will. But you were such a hit, and everybody who bought your book has told me how phenomenal it was, because it is all true, and it's everything that you've kind of experienced, and that you gave some really interesting background information about yourself and about how you kind of started being interested in all of this stuff. And I mean, you were just a kid, right? Your house was kind of active. Tell everybody sort of how it all began, because this is really exciting.
Yeah. So when I was 3 years old, I was born in Rexdale, which is a borough of Toronto. And my dad, who grew up in the city near the stockyards, the slaughterhouses, his whole life he wanted to get out of the city. He wanted a nice property out in the country, land, lots of room. So he found a home, raised bungalow on a couple of acres of land in Caledon, which is about an hour, I would say an hour northwest of Toronto. Okay. And when we moved up there, I was 3 years old. I had an older sister. She's 5 years older than me, so she was 8. And right after we moved in, I started having really, really terrible nightmares. And these were nightmares that normal 3-year-olds don't come up with. Right. Like, you'd be, usually kids are afraid of the boogeyman, the man in the guy in the closets. Who knows what they're afraid of, right? Like, my kids have never had nightmares, so I don't even know what to compare it to. So, and they're teenagers now. But I was having these debilitating nightmares where I would come up screaming my head off, like hyperventilating, shaking uncontrollably. And my poor mom would be in the room with me, and she would always say that I was pointing to the corner and saying, there's a man there. And these nightmares were always about something with my dad, where he would be caught in like machinery, almost like the cogs and wheels of like a Swiss watch, that kind of thing. Yeah. And he would be getting his arms torn off and eviscerated. And like I said, what kind of 3-year-old comes up with that sort of thing?
Right.
Like TV back then was tame.
Yeah.
Compared to
it wasn't like we have now.
No. So it's not like I watched something and got the idea from it. And I had these nightmares for years. And it was always the same thing. It was always these cogs and it was like miles of them. Like it's like on the horizon, I could see them.
Wow.
And I would always wake up looking at the corner, this man. And my mom said, there's no one there. And we would have some other weird stuff happen in the house where the washer and dryer would turn on by themselves. We would hear footsteps on the roof. And we were right in the country. Like, our closest neighbor was like 600-700 yards away.
Yeah.
So my dad would go out there with baseball bat and flashlight. And he's like, there's nobody up there. But it was definitely, a man or like a person. It wasn't like a raccoon like scuttling across the roof. It was boom, 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 boom. Also, the thermostat would move on its own. Remember the old style thermostats where you actually had to like slide the thing across, and it would move on its own. It would get hot, it would get cold. So my dad even got to the point where he put two screws. Like he said, okay, it's going to be 72 in this house, and that's it. So he put a screw on either side of the needle, and we came out one day, and the needle was on the other side of one of the screws.
Oh my God. Yeah, and like there's no way that can happen.
No. And in my family room, in the basement, where I spent most of my time as a kid playing and watching TV, I would always see this shadow, flicker of a person in the entrance to this other room that we called our music room. Like, we used to have a piano in there, and my dad used to have his old 8-track player, in there with his, Kenny Rogers cassettes and stuff like that. The good old days, right?
That's pretty scary by itself. I mean, when you think about that.
Awesome quality though.
Yeah.
And I would always see this thing, and I'd look, it'd be gone. Peripheral, look, gone. Mm-hmm. And we found out later that the former owner of the home had committed suicide in that room. Our music room was his bedroom. And this guy was abusive to his wife and his kids. He was a terrible drunk, took pills, which wasn't even a thing back in the 70s or whenever it happened. And apparently, according to the neighbors, I resembled his son so much, like spitting image. Because like when they saw me, they were like, "Holy cow! Do you ever look like?" And I won't repeat his name because I know his full name, but they said, "Oh, you look like so and so's son," like spitting image. So he had overdosed intentionally on pills and alcohol in the basement, died down there, and his spirit didn't move on, didn't ascend. And I don't know if he knew that he was dead, and he was still in a drunken stupor, even in spirit, and was taking all of his rage out on me. Lucky me.
Yeah.
So years later, my mom and a friend of hers went to a psychic in Toronto. And this guy used to be, do you remember Lorne Green from Bonanza and Battlestar Galactica? Yeah, so he was Canadian. He was from Toronto. And this guy used to be his personal psychic, Lorne Green's psychic. Wow. So my mom and her friend thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So they just went there for fun. And before they went, I guess the psychic's wife said to my mom and her friend, because she was the one who handled all the appointments, said, if you have anyone you'd like my husband to connect to, bring a picture of them, but don't show them. When you come in, put them face down on the table, and he'll get to them if they're, if the universe decides. So he's doing his thing, and he says to my mom, he says, do you know you have a ghost in your home? And my mom was like, yeah. She's pretty open to this stuff. She says, yeah, there's something going on in the house. He says, yeah. He says, he does not like your son. And he reached over and he picked up my photo and flipped it over. And my mom was like, oh, okay. And he says, you got to get rid of this guy because he's been affecting him for years. So he referred. Did you hear that voice?
I thought I heard something.
Yeah, that was a female. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, EVP time. If anybody, anybody timestamp
and it's on recording, so we got it.
That's right. That was. Oh, I got the feels up my right arm now, and I did my protection beforehand, and we'll get into that later. Yeah. But that was a female EVP there. So he connected my mom with this other lady who specialized in getting rid of malicious spirits or any spirits, right?
Right.
And her name was Carol Davis, and she was this little old lady from Wales, and she came to our home with this gentleman by the name of Ian Curry, and he used to be a professor at the University of Guelph, and he died in 1990. 6, I want to say, somewhere around then. And they both came to the house, and as they were coming to the home, this spirit attacked Mr. Curry. And he could feel the psychic attack while he was driving, and he turned to Miss Davis and said, you got to get this guy off me. Like, he's affecting me. We're going to crash the car or something. So she did her thing and got rid of him. And once they were at our house, so what she did is she was a channeler. She would actually become the spirit.
Right.
And this is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life. And my dad, I don't think he was much of a believer, or he just didn't want to acknowledge it. It's like a lot of men, right? They're like, I don't believe in that. And, the dog will float across the room in front of them. They're like, oh, there's got to be something,
Yeah, my dad's the same way. Same.
God, yes.
Literally, the couch could pick up and go to the other side of the room, and he'd be like, not that that's ever happened, but that would be his attitude. Oh, I gotta go figure out why the floor's uneven or something. Like, make up anything.
Oh, he said it doesn't interfere with the hockey game that I'm watching or whatever. So she came in and she channeled this spirit. So she's sitting on the couch, Mr. Curry sitting beside her. I'm sitting across from her. My mom and my sister are in other chairs over here. My dad is to my right. And imagine this little Welsh woman, tiny little, eccentric thing. She crumples over and her hands get all knotted up and her back gets hunched and she starts retching, like dry heaving, like a drunk.
Oh my God.
Oh, and swearing like a trucker. Like, I won't repeat what she said on the show here, and her voice changed. Her demeanor changed. Her voice changed. And, and Mr. Curry, who's seen her do this dozens of times, he's just like, whatever. And he's talking to the spirit.
Right.
And he's saying, you have to leave this young boy alone. You're dead. And the thing that got me was he kept saying, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead. Like, get it through your head.
Yeah.
Move to the light. Wow. Stop bugging people. And he finally got this, and the spirit thought that he was still alive, and he thought he was in a hospital. Oh. Like, he was in a state of confusion. So he thought that he was at a detox, getting dried out, right? And Mr. Curry, who I guess had some clairvoyant abilities as well, could see this, could see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. He could see a man, silhouette of a man. He says, "Do you see that man?" He says, "You need to go to him. He'll help you. He'll make everything feel better. Just go." And I guess the spirit, in his state of confusion and spiritual drunkenness, I guess, which I guess is a thing, thought it was a doctor. And they finally convinced him to move on. And once he was gone and into the light, so to speak, this psychic, this little Welsh lady, Miss Davis, sat right up, and she was like, "Oh, hello," back to her. But before she was like, "If," and like I said, I won't repeat what, but it was like she was possessed with this guy. And as soon as he was gone, it almost felt like we had been swimming in a pool for years and someone drained it. Like, really? The feeling was amazing. Like, my dad, and we didn't know this, but he was affecting my dad for years too. Because when my dad and I stood up, we felt like we were 10 foot tall.
Wow. Like,
amazing. Like, the great weight, like someone had, a backpack of rocks was on my back for 10 years. And someone said, "Oh, here, let me take that off." It was just so amazing. And the thing that got to me was, she said to me, I think I was 13 at the time, 14. I was in grade 8. So yeah, you're like 13. Yeah. And I had just gotten into horror movies and Stephen King novels and creepy comic books and stuff. And she said, "I want you to stay away from all of this stuff until you're 21 years old." And I was like, no, don't do this to me, right? But she said, you can open yourself back up and he can come back. And I was like, but if he's gone into the light, into heaven, how could he come back? And why would he want to, right? So it really makes you think about what's on the other side, and, heaven and hell, and the concept of, our afterlife and things like that. But I stayed away from all that creepiness until I was 21, and then gorged on it. and now I'm many years later, I'm back into the paranormal and part of an investigative team, and written a book, and have a co-host of a paranormal podcast, and having awesome people like you on the show, and you having me on your shows. And so I guess things come full circle, and I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I think things are meant to happen, and
I agree.
So it's all good.
Yeah,
I agree.
But that was probably the beginning of my quote unquote paranormal journey or life.
That's
So,
pretty cool. Well, I remember reading about that. In your book, you talk about the fact that you were told to stay away from all of those horror movies and novels that were scary. And when I read that, I thought that was interesting, because people have talked about that. I mean, other paranormal investigators have talked about that. How do you feel about that?
In what way did they talk about it? Like, a talk about Dan's experience, or saying to keep away, or?
Yeah, to keep away, because if you, let's say, watch too many paranormal shows, or, you're subjecting yourself to too many scary things, do you attract that into your atmosphere, into your world? Do you believe that that's true?
I think it is true to a point. You have to have a nice balance, right? If you enjoy horror movies, then you still have to fill your house with happy music, sunlight, some romantic comedies, whatever it is. Because if you just, you see people who are really into that stuff, and I don't want to label people or like the emo style or the goth, where they're always dark and they paint their walls black at home, and they've got pentagrams.
As I'm in my dark purple room.
Well, that's a little different. You've got crystals and dream catchers, and you've got your cool little lights going on. So it's a happy place, right? Yeah. So you have to have a nice happy medium. Get out in the sunshine. Go hug a tree. That sort of thing. So, and come back and watch your horror movie later.
We've all, I'm sure, experienced those clients that, you go on a case, or you're doing the prelim for a case, or however it is. And, and you just know that these people have invested their time into watching some of these TV shows like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures. And, you can just tell by the behavior, the persona, or what it is that they talk about, or, if they all of a sudden come up with some name that Zach Bagans used on Ghost Adventures or whatever it is. It's like, oh yeah, my demon's name is this, and you can always tell, and so you're right. Like, there has to be that balance between the two. And, you always kind of think, I mean, okay, personally, I grew up, so my mom used to take us to these horror shows when we were little. I remember going there, and when we were young, there was this museum, and they played a new Alfred Hitchcock every month. And I'd be in my stroller watching, like, Psycho, the rear, I can't say that.
Rear
the
window.
Bird. This is what I grew up with. But
Holy
through
God.
that,
I remember
watching The Exorcist and Jaws, like, in the theater, like, not The Exorcist in the theater, but, as soon as you could, like on VHS or whatever, right? But it never really affected me in that extent. I don't know if it did or not. I can't say that because look at what I'm doing now, but not in that extent where I thought, oh yeah, you know, my kids are going to come down the stairs backwards. They've got to be possessed with Captain Howdy or whatever. Like, you know, it's just, there's that difference, you know, between watching and absorbing. Right. And I think that there definitely needs to be that good, healthy mental balance between some of these things that are, you know, between what we do and what is going on really. And it's funny because you find a lot of spiritual people will, not spiritual, but people that are really interested, they'll be like, oh yeah, did you see that piece of dust? I got a picture of it, or that big orb. And you're like, did you just vacuum? Because that's vacuum dust, dude.
Right.
Oh, now there's something to talk about. I was actually going to ask you about that, you know, Dan, about that whole orb thing, because as you know, some people really don't believe in them. Some paranormal investigators absolutely believe in them. What's your theory about orb activity?
Well, I know some of our paranormal investigative peers west don't believe in orbs. They think it's just dust. But you know, after a while, you can tell the difference between.
You can tell the difference. That's exactly.
Oh yeah, you can tell the difference between orbs, dust, bugs, you know, that sort of thing. Like if you're doing an investigation in January, there's no bloody bugs banging around. And if you're not moving and stirring up the dust, then it's not dust either. Right. And orbs and dust doesn't go like 30 miles an hour through the room and then do a 160 in a barrel roll and then disappear through the ceiling, which I have captured numerous times. So, and I think those are spirits. And sometimes we've done locations where it's like a pathway of orbs, like hundreds of them, and you think that, well, maybe the reason why this building is so active is because there's a ley line that goes through, or or there's a portal on the property, and it's not so much connected to the building, but it's just the energy that the building is on, and I've got some great evidence of orbs doing their thing. And I'll give you one example. We did an art gallery out near where I live, and and in the summertime they have a lot of kids camps, like come in and draw and paint all day, and little kids see things that adults don't because their minds are more open, and they kept seeing the spirit of this little boy sliding down the banister, and the way the banister it comes down maybe about 8 or 9 steps, and then there's a landing, and then it's like 30 steps to the actual main floor. And we had our camera set up because the kids kept seeing this kid, the spirit of this little guy, and we see this orb come down the stairs, like the 9 steps, and it kind of jumped on top of the banister and slid down the banister and then disappeared. And I was like, wow. That's
there you go.
There you go. And if you see smoke, I'm not on fire. I'm burning some sage.
Oh, I was just wondering about that. I was like, did you know that you have some smoke going in front of you?
Yeah, I've got my little stuff going. Okay. So I usually do when I do a podcast or whatever. Right. Doesn't work, but makes me feel better.
I was going to say, you don't want to have anybody's energy kind of hop into you or into your atmosphere, because you have a story about that, do you not?
I do, and that was just last Monday, and you and I talked about this a little bit.
Kathy, you're going to love this.
Yeah, I didn't love it so much.
No.
So last Monday, and this has happened before, but not to me. So there's 3 of us on the podcast. It's me, so Dan, Danny, and Rachel. And Rachel is a medium, and she's very sensitive. She picks up on things. Danny, he's kind of getting there. So last Monday, we were interviewing a lady, and I won't say who it is right now because it hasn't been posted yet.
Right.
But she had something, and she was in Colorado. I'll say that for now. She was in Colorado. I'm talking to her over Zoom or whatever platform we were using at the time, just like with you ladies.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to talk, and I've got all these questions written out, and I've got all these notes, and I can't get my mouth, my brain to work. I can't get anything. And I'm sitting here going and looking at this woman on the screen, and I wanted to kill her. Like I wanted to strangle her. I wanted to punch her in the face, and that's never happened to me before. And on Zoom, like you can message the other hosts, and I'm messaging Rachel, and she noticed something was wrong with me because I just kind of like slumped back in the chair, and I went all kind of sullen and quiet. She's like, "What's?" She says, "Something's after you. Something's going after you." And I said, "Yeah." I said, I want to strangle this woman. Like I can't stand her. I hate her." And I messaged Danny too, and he was feeling compromised as well. Like he kept getting up and walking around his room.
Oh.
And I'm like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, sit down. We're doing a podcast." Like, and I'm sure the guest was like, "What's going on with this guy?" Because she can see us. And it took him about 10 minutes to settle down, and he finally sat down. And I'm trying to keep this, because Rachel's pretty quiet. She does her little thing at the end. And I'm messaging the both of them saying, you got to help me. Like, Danny, you got to take over here. And Rachel, like, can you send some positive energy my way?
Yeah.
And, oh, man, I didn't like it at all. And then I said to this woman, I said, "Do you have anything attached to you? Anything bad?" She says, "Well, yeah, I did for about 5 years." And I said, and I'm thinking to and she's telling her story, and I'm thinking in my head, well, it's still there.
Yeah.
Right? And then she goes to tell me that I guess she rents like the upper floor of a house, and the guy below her, the guy who she rents from, has a collection of over 800 Ouija boards in his living room. And I'm like, okay, this is why, there's got to be, like, can you imagine that? Like, no, that's crazy.
I can imagine.
It took me a good, like, until the next day to get
I'll tell you
feelings out of my head. And
I'll tell you something, Dan, that happened to me a few years back. This was about 10 years ago. And as soon as you started talking, I was like, oh my God, like that. I was just like, it's like, I just suddenly remembered it. And it was interesting because we used to have the public meetings as well. So public paranormal meetings. And we brought in people that just had an interest in the paranormal. And, we would sometimes get very large groups. And one night it was very, very quiet. It was a really quiet night because it was like raining or thundering outside. And so, we didn't really have a large crowd, but all of a sudden I was sitting there and I was like, I just started feeling agitated. I was like, I just feel angry. Like I'm not, I mean, I know you guys don't know me well, but I am not an angry person. Anybody who knows me, I'm not like, that kind of person. And I just felt so angry all of a sudden. And then these two women walked in. And as soon as the one woman walked in, she just stared at me. She just gave me this, there was something about the look. And I was sitting there and I was just getting more and more angry and angry and angry. And at one point there, I said, I have to go. I have to leave. I have to get up and I have to physically leave. But it was interesting because we were all in a circle talking, and she was, all of a sudden, it was like her face was looking forward, but there was like this flash that I saw where when she looked at me, her face literally changed. But she was still looking forward, but it was almost like a second face that kind of looked at me. Mm-hmm. And I literally, if I had a weapon in my hand, like a hammer, or I would have hurt this woman. Like it was like this massive anger that I've never experienced before. And she was doing nothing except sitting there. so I had to leave because I knew, like, if I don't leave now, there's something bad is going to really happen. And it's going to be from me, my energy, or like whatever it is that this woman. So anyway, make a long story short, I went home. The next day I was like fairly all right. And one of the other team members said, "What the hell happened to you last night?" And I said, "I don't know, but there's something wrong with that woman. There was something wrong with her. And I was just getting her energy." And he told me apparently a few years before, she had, like, I guess after I'd left, they were talking. Turns out she apparently was possessed, and they had done some sort of exorcism on her. And so it sounds very similar. It's almost like this chaotic anger energy that just, and I mean, I forgot about it for years. And I did remember it a couple of times because there's a few people famously, I guess, that I've sort of felt that energy with, where I felt really angry for no reason and I couldn't quite figure it out. And then I was starting to remember from that, but you forgot about it. And then when you brought it up again, I was just like, holy crap. That was like reliving that whole story. It
wasn't a good feeling.
There, it was so
was not a good feeling
and
at
brush
all.
it off.
That's for sure.
No. But it's interesting how some people don't believe that you can feel this energy and you can experience what you experienced from a distance through a computer screen.
Yeah, for sure.
Most people don't really believe that unless you're a person like us who deals with energy and energy work and the paranormal in general. Honestly, people don't believe that can happen.
Right. Well, just I think it was 2 or 3 episodes prior when we were talking to someone from Oklahoma City, Rachel got attacked.
Wow.
And when I was watching her in her screen, and she put her head down and she was doing this, and I was like, and I was messaging her. I said, "What's going on?" And she says, "Something's here. Something's attacked me, and I have to leave." And she shut her computer down and everything. Wow. And I was like, oh, that's never happened before. So for it to happen to me, 3 episodes later, and it was affecting Danny a little bit as well. It was like, So I guess, and I did it today just because, and I'm trying to make a habit of it. I did my protection and grounded myself and everything else, and put a bubble around me, and I've got my little sage stick going, because you never know, right? Yeah. And I never want to experience that again, because I'm a big guy. I'm 6'7", 300 and none of your business pounds. And I mean, Lynda, you've met me, and hi, right?
Yep.
But I'm a very gentle, relaxed, laid back kind of guy. But I was like, wanted to strangle this woman. And and the thing too is I sent her a long message afterwards on Facebook Messenger. I said, I'm very sorry, and I told her what had happened. I told her the whole thing, and she didn't reply.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And I was like,
really?
So maybe there is something keeping her from replying or connecting with me again. I mean, I'll connect with her again, say, hey, your episode is up. Please share it with all your, family and friends and all that sort of thing.
Wow. I have heard though that sometimes people try to pass that energy, that they try to, because they know that they carry it, that they want somebody else to take it over. And they can sometimes push it upon people in hopes that purpose, it will attach to somebody else.
Right. Well, she said that she had dealt with it, lived with it for 5 years and then finally got rid of it. But it's either the same thing or something else that's with her. And it decided to, use the Zoom link and the podcast to jump over to me or try to affect me in a way. But and it certainly did. It wasn't pleasant. That's for sure.
Well, you've had some other unpleasant things happen. I remember you telling me about you being punched by a ghost, and I thought, what? Well, I'm sure there are people out there who'd like to hear that.
But I didn't think that was unpleasant. I thought that was so cool. So my paranormal team is called SHIP, SHIP, Strange Happenings and Investigators of the Paranormal. And there's a farmhouse out near Orangeville that I'm in Ontario. It's a farmhouse out near Orangeville that's got tons and tons of activity. The daughter, I think when she was like 19, 20 years old, went to go clean up some of the stalls in the barn, and something knocked her out cold. Like she saw like a black shadow come up and boom, knocked her out cold. Tons of stuff going on in this house. Always active. And we did an investigation. And then the next day I was home, was doing some yard work, came inside around 3 o'clock. So I'm going to lay down and have a little nap. Why not, right? I laid down, and I think I slept for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. And when I was going to get up, just so I was pushing myself up off the couch, I saw this woman's fist manifest in front of me. And you could tell it was like an older lady's hand, the thin and, the big knuckles. And I could see a black sleeve. And she drilled me right in the mouth, like right here, boom, like upper lip. And my head snapped back so hard. Like Lynda, it's like if you or Cathryn, it's like one of you two just suckered me right in the mouth when I wasn't paying attention. And my head snapped back so hard, my neck was sore for 2 days.
Wow.
And I could feel the punch, and I could hear the smack and everything else, the jolt. And I was like, oh, that was wicked. That was so cool. And but the funny thing is I could taste blood in my mouth, and I ran to the bathroom, which is just, like steps away, and I spit in the sink, but there was no blood. And we all know what blood tastes like. Like if you've been to the dentist or, someone punched you in the mouth or whatever, but there wasn't any blood. So it was almost like in her reality, she had really injured me, cut me, but it hadn't affected me, which was really, sorry, I thought someone was coming in, which was really weird. And the other thing is I knew exactly who it was. I was like, oh, it's this old lady from the farmhouse. And we had another medium connect with her. And her thing was her grandson is also a spirit on this farm. And he doesn't know, I don't think he knows that he's dead. And she's there protecting him. And she didn't want us to move her along and leave him exposed to whatever. Yeah. So she goes after people if she thinks we're there to move her or get rid of her. And we connected with her through this medium and said, listen, we're not here to move you. If you promise to stop attacking people, right, just we'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
And I guess she accepted those terms, and she's still floating around this farmhouse and hopefully not punching people in the mouth. But, it was... I'm that kind of guy. I loved it. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Like to see this forearm materialize in front of you in the air and just whack, and I had to, my wife, who doesn't really like this stuff, she's got that Catholic upbringing and everything is demonic. And,
right.
I had to tell her, I said, yes, I said, some spirit of an old lady just bopped me one in the mouth. So, and she was like, okay.
Okay.
I don't want to eat. But it was, I've been attacked by poltergeists, and I've been hit on other occasions. So it doesn't bother me though. It's, I don't know. I'm just that guy. I'm the guy that runs towards gunfire instead of running the other way. So.
How long has your team been, how long have you been doing the investigations with your team now?
I think...
Or did you have another team before?
No. I got connected with them maybe about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. So all this crazy stuff that's happened to me, like everything that went into my book, has been in the past 5 years.
Oh. Wow.
So enough to fill, a fair-sized book.
Yeah.
And I've had interactions with poltergeists, and I've seen Lynda, I've seen a little person of the forest. I've seen a UFO. I've had interactions with Sasquatch. There's my hat, Ontario Sasquatch. But I go looking for it now too, right? So like if someone accuses me of saying, "Oh, how could someone have so many interactions within such a little time?"
Right.
You know what? I go looking for it. I certainly didn't go looking for the little person of the forest or the UFO, but you know what? I'm not going to lie just to make other people feel better, right? I know what I saw, and we all know that there's weird stuff out there. And if you're watching this show, whoever you are, you've got some interest in the paranormal and the supernatural. So, I think there's a lot of people that experience a lot of things and they don't speak up because fear of ridicule or whatever else. Like when I saw that little person, I kept that story to myself for a long time until I got into the paranormal, wholeheartedly. And even the UFO story I'd kept to myself for quite a while. And thankfully my wife saw it as well. So I was like, oh, whew, I have a witness. Right. So, yeah. But there's also that theory that people who are open to these things and have some gifts attract these things and see them more often than others, right?
That was actually going to be my next question. I was going to ask you, do you think that the more that you do open yourself up, like the more that people allow, with the investigations, or you just remain in that open state, I suppose, do you personally feel that does draw in more?
I think so, because I have met people who are open-minded and who are not so much open-minded, but people who are sensitive, open to spirit, that kind of thing, who have said, "Oh yeah, I've seen ghosts and I saw a UFO and then I saw Bigfoot running through the forest." And so, and even I, who has encountered a lot of weird things in my life, there's still that 5% in the back of my head going, "You're full of crap." Right? But then I go, "Oh wait, that's what people probably say about you when you tell your stories." Right? So, but you know what? Now I don't even care. Like, it's not like I'm hiding anything. There's my name on the bottom of the screen. Here's Ontario Sasquatch, and here's my book, and so whatever. I don't care.
So I have a tell when I hear things, like when I hear stories from clients, or when people are telling me things, and my tell is how I can differentiate between the normal to the paranormal. And it's like, for me, I feel the cold, my body just literally, it's like from the inside out, it just starts turning cold. And so I can hear two different stories. Like, you could tell me a story, Lynda, and Dan could tell me the same story, but one of you is right. And I'd be able to tell you which one is right. Like, which one is true paranormal and which one was just a normal experience. Do you have anything like that? Or maybe you, Lynda, like, do you guys experience that?
I do, 100%. It's interesting that you would even mention that, because I was talking about just the same thing the other day to someone else who's in the paranormal. And we both share the cold. We get cold, or we get shivery when something is paranormal, when something out of the ordinary is happening. It's like something takes over inside my body, and I shake. I either speak with a shaky kind of voice, or I get really cold. So, and I found that that's been happening more and more. I've been doing this for 40 years, and it's amazing how you kind of now, and Dan, after experiencing all that you've experienced in the past, like 5 years, immediately when you walk into a location, immediately that something is kind of wonky or just not right. It's funny how you develop that, right?
Oh yeah. See, my thing is, I'll see spirits, right? I'll see that movement, or see whatever, or see the outline of them in the doorway. It'll be at a restaurant, or I'll be at someone else's home, and I'm looking at them and I'm watching, and my wife is like, "What the hell are you looking at?" Right? She goes, "What's here?" And I'm like, "Oh, don't worry about it." Right. But like, especially in old buildings, like if you're at a pub or restaurant, and I'll see, a spirit standing in the doorway or whatever, I always like to say to the waitress, I'll go, "What's with all the ghosts in here?"
Oh,
And so, and you know what? And 99% of the time they go, "What did you see?" Because they've
Yeah.
seen things, right?
Yeah, we've had
or a lot of
experiences themselves.
or a lot of the times they'll just go, "Whoa." Because they have seen something and they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And they go, "Oh, can I get you more buns or water or whatever?" So you're like, I said, "Oh, you party pooper,"
Yeah.
But yeah, my thing is I see things, I'll sense them, and usually sometimes confirmations, I'll get a wicked chill up my back.
Right.
Like, well, I won't get that cold thing, that you ladies get, but I'll get that whoo, like it's like almost the spirit going, "Yep, you're right," or "I'm right," or "I'm here." So yeah, my right arm will like tingle like crazy, like it was earlier when I heard that voice, that little EVP that we'll have to check out. So
Oh yeah, we got to check that out for sure.
it was definitely female, so I don't know who could it be, but I don't know if it's connected to me or Cathryn.
You want to hear something crazy though? Like in the last 5 or 10 minutes, I literally kind of keep feeling like somebody's like behind you and wanting to like, what did they call that? Photobomb your video.
Right. Behind me?
Yeah.
Okay.
But on the other side.
Right. No, over here. This way.
Yeah.
Sorry. Camera's reversed.
Like that way. But you don't see it. It's just like that image, like that feeling for me. It's almost like somebody kind of looking and what the hell is he doing? Like look like wanting to photobomb your so it'd be interesting to see what that EVP does have to say.
It's probably
and
my mom.
See if there's yeah.
You never know.
Well, you were talking about your mom, so you never know.
That's right.
You were talking about her.
And she's like, "Stop telling these people lies."
Stop sharing all the family secrets.
Yeah. Stop telling that stupid story.
Well, but I have another question for you, Dan, because as you are progressing in your paranormal career, you like that one?
Sure.
You're really interested in things like remote viewing and all of that as well, correct? I mean,
yes.
You're really starting to get into that. How did you discover that you had some sort of acumen, some sort of, I don't know, I guess you're able to do this?
So remote viewing. So the definition of remote viewing is like from like these military experiments, and it is a real thing. Like the CIA spent $28 million on remote viewing program called this Stargate, I think, and I think they still do it. But they usually give you the coordinates on a piece of paper, and they say focus on these coordinates, and it'll take you to the location we want you to look at. But that's not what happens to me. It's not like astral projection either. I'm not leaving my body and flying like Superman across the sky like people who astral project are. I haven't been able to do that yet. I've been trying. But it's almost like my subconscious will go to this location, but I can still interact with people. Like if you and I, Lynda, were remote viewing the same location, we could text each other and say, "Okay, what do you see?" So I might have to come up with another term but for now I call it remote viewing.
Yeah.
So a former co-host named John, who used to be on the podcast with us, but he had to leave because he was experiencing tons and tons of dark, malicious, demonic crap, and he had to push himself away from the paranormal. He and I, when we connected, we could remote view a location.
Wow!
But we had to do it together. It was weird. Like it's almost like we have to feed off each other's energy or kind of amplify each other. And I've had two psychic mediums who didn't even know John say, "Yeah, you guys, when you guys work together, two become three." Which is weird.
That's weird.
Yeah. So he and I would experiment with each other. And even before I met him, like physically, we would text each other. We got connected through a friend of ours. And I said, let's try an experiment. I said, try to project what your house looks like to me, and I'll describe it. And he did it. And I described his home, the color of it. It was gray vinyl. It wasn't like red brick or anything. And I said, your house is gray vinyl, blah, 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 all these details. And he said, hold on a second. And he went outside, he took a picture of it, and he texted it to me. And it was his house. Like, I described it to a T. Like, I could have said anything, like white with black shingles or red brick, green roof, blah, blah, blah. And I guess I could have still got lucky, right? But we started, and after we connected, we started remote viewing and clearing homes of spirits that hadn't moved on. But these were human entity or human spirits, not the nasty growly things. We hadn't got to that point yet. So John, and I'll tell you one this is one of the craziest, one of two crazy remote viewing things that I've done with John. So John, he's been on Paranormal Survivor as well. And he was attacked by a poltergeist for years. One that followed him from a rental property that he had. He was getting attacked every night, like punched, pushed. He would wake up with his foot was in the air and his ankle was being cranked. Like things were disappearing from the home. He would bend over to get something out of the fridge, and this thing would shove him into the fridge. Like all sorts of things. And he would show me the bruises and the marks. And poor John was a basket case. It's almost like, something invisible is going to attack you all the time, right? And you can imagine, like, you're hyper vigilant all the time, and it was stressing him out. He was drinking a lot, and he was losing weight, and he didn't want to sleep because every time he went to sleep, boom, he would get attacked by this thing. Yeah. So we got to a point where we were going to go after this spirit. So I'm sitting in my lazy boy just over here in my family room. John's at his home. And I forget what time of the day it was. It was summertime, so it was like dusk, I think. And John remote viewed and connected with this poltergeist, which was a human spirit who had just figured out how to, manipulate energy and push people and move things and hurt people. And John said, I've got him. He says, picture a house with a porch, screen door. He's in the room on the left. And as soon as I leaned back and closed my eyes, I found myself at this home. And I was standing on the porch, looking at the screen door. And I opened this door and I walked into the left. And there's this spirit standing in the corner. And this spirit, like, I'm getting tingles just telling this story. He's looking at me like, what the hell? Like, he's like, we had him cornered. He was like, what the hell's going on here? And I swear on the lives of my children that I went after this guy in spirit, in my subconscious form, and I just started beating the living crap out of him. Like, I could feel like the punches and the kicks, and I threw him down on the ground. And I have two uncles who are gone, crossed over, and they help look after me. They're not spirit guides, but they're around, and if I need some help, I can call on them. And I never even thought to connect with them. And after I threw this guy down on the ground, my two uncles are standing there. And they're big, they're tough guys. They're in World War II. One had been shot like 3 times on 3 different occasions, so they were, no strangers to violence. And I'm watching my uncles in spirit form kicking the living crap out of this guy on the floor, like soccer kicking him. Wow. And they both grabbed him like bouncers dragging a guy out of a bar. Right. And they went out the door and then into the sky. Like, it was crazy. Like, oh, the goosebumps I'm getting. And I looked over, and there's John standing looking right at me. And he's like, it was weird. Like, he's in his subconscious form, and he's like breathing hard, and he's like, like he's just been in a fight.
Wow.
So, you know what? And at first I was like, okay, this didn't happen. I've got a good imagination, right?
Right.
You know, like this didn't happen. So I text John. I open my eyes and I text John. I'm like, I'm trying to be all casual, right? I'm like, so what did you see? And John goes, was that you kicking him when he was down, or your uncle's? And I went, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I said, John, I could see you. I said, and I told him it was my uncle's. I said, you're wearing a black t-shirt, blue jeans, and white running shoes. And he was like, yeah. And he was looking at me and I was looking at him, but we're like 2 hours apart physically. Yeah. Like he's up on Lake Huron, you know, and I'm down in the Guelph area. And it was like, and we talked about that forever.
So you know what I call that? I call it actually lucid traveling, because I've always been able to do that as well. So, and especially before we even went on a case, a lot of times is, I was kind of cheating a bit, I guess, because I was like, I don't even know if we should really go and set up our equipment. Let me go take a look, and so, because it takes a lot of work, it's a lot of work. You guys know how much effort and all that work. So, you'd listen to the clients or whatever. But sometimes what I did is I would have other people go and listen to the clients so that they knew what was happening. And I would just kind of go, okay, I'm going to go visit, get their permission, as long as I can come and take a look around their house. And that's exactly it. Like I can go in and I wouldn't be able to see every detail, but you see enough that you're able to say to the client, okay, like there's a big cookie jar on your counter, or you've got an orange couch, or you've got this, so you see enough, and then you're able to just sort of walk around. And so I've been doing that for a long, and I didn't know what to call it, right? Like he's, it's not really astral traveling. I don't know. So I always,
this happened last time too, Kathy.
I just sort of started my thing.
But like we described the room that we were in. We described the color of the walls. Yeah. There was a fireplace and the couch and it was wild. And you know what? If anyone says I'm full of it, whatever, it happened. John confirmed it, and it's, and that after that, and even before that, I think that's why John had confidence in it to go after this guy too, is that we were moving other spirits. Like people would contact us and say, listen, I've got some weird thing going on in my house. And we would we always have to, except for that one time where we punched this guy's lights out, so to speak, we always needed photos to work from. So I would say, listen, try and take as many photos as you can of the inside of the home, especially where you're seeing the activity. And then, I would get them on my phone. I would send them to John, and I'd say, okay, let's do this at 8:00 tonight. And we kind of made a joke. See, John's just a little guy. I'm 6'7", and we used to call John the SWAT team, and I was the hostage negotiator, right? Because when we did this, and I'll give you an example. We did a home in Hamilton where they were having all sorts of crazy experiences where things were moving. There was a skill saw in the basement that would fire up on its own, and it wasn't even plugged in. All sorts of crazy things. But it was this like 18-year-old kid who had committed suicide in the area, and he didn't like the living arrangement of the family there because it was like mom and dad and mom's boyfriend. So, and whatever floats your boat, right? But he I guess he came from a troubled home, and he wanted her to do better as a mother, and that kind of thing. And we trapped him in the basement, and like John trapped him like in this light, and I could see this kid. I knew his name and everything, and I said, listen, you need to move on. And he was a suicide. So, and there's that belief system that, well, that's the ultimate sin. I'm gonna go to hell.
Retribution.
And when I confronted them, I said, listen, dude, this isn't your home. This isn't your family. It's not for you to worry about. I said, you have to go into the light. I said, you won't be judged. I said, we're all wired differently. You can't really control what happened. This is what was planned for you. I said, move on. And I swear I could see it was like a big, people say, this bright light opens up, and I could see that like this blue cone of light coming down, and boom, he disappeared. And just before John and I, got our subconscious out of there, I could see two other orbs, like balls of light, go zipping up into this light. And I don't know if it was two other spirits that were looking for an opportunity to move on, or if it was his parents, or if it was somebody else. But after we did that, the house was perfect, quiet. And the family, mom, dad, and the boyfriend were having a great time. And they had little kids there and everything else. But it was only something that I could do with John. Like that's like that lady said, 2 become 3. And I've actually only done it once since then on my own, and I think it was a fluke. So, yeah. And
maybe
that
it was like an anchor with John. Like there was sort of an anchor element with the two of you, right? Like one was able to go, but it was almost like an anchor, like that. I don't know how to describe it, but that's what I just kept feeling was like an anchor. There was an anchor element.
Mm-hmm. The one time that I did it all by myself, the person in the home could see me, could see my astral whatever, and it was Rachel from the podcast.
Oh,
and she had something dark, like a shadow person in her home. It was affecting her husband. Her husband's a really nice guy. He's upbeat, positive, and over a few days he was like changing, right? And she said, Dan, like, can you give me a hand here? And I said, well, I don't, I'm not with John. John and I aren't doing our thing anymore. He's stayed away from the paranormal. I said, well, let me see if me and my 2 uncles can help out. And I've been to Rachel's house tons of times because we used to do the podcast. I just heard another voice right there, and that was a male voice at that time. And I popped into her home subconsciously, or astral, or sorry, what did you call it? Lucid projection. Lucid traveling.
Yeah.
And I stood in the doorway between her kitchen and her dining room, and I'm looking down the hallway towards the bedrooms, and I could see Rachel standing there. And I texted her, and I said, "You're wearing purple with white writing." So she took a selfie, and she was wearing purple pajamas with white writing. And I thought, oh, this is cool. And then I closed my eyes and went back to the house, so to speak. And I could see my 2 uncles, one on either side of this shadow person. And like I said, it was like dragging a drunk out of a bar, like 2 bouncers. And they dragged this thing, like slid like they were on a conveyor belt out the back wall and gone.
Wow.
And Rachel texts me. She says, I could see you. I could see you standing in, and she told me exactly where I was standing. She said, I could see you standing in the doorway between the dining room and the kitchen. And she said, I could see your 2 uncles dragging this thing out of the house, because she's a medium, right? She sees a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Really? Because you don't want to believe that it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Because your mind is always like, well, that's just your imagination. But when she confirmed it, I was like, holy cow, that's really cool. And that's the last time I did it. And she said her husband woke up the next morning. He was like, man, I slept like a baby last night. He says, I feel so good. And I don't know if she told her that, I sent this, my 2 uncles in to lay the beats on this shadow person, but that's what they did. Yeah.
That's really cool. Honestly, Dan, I want to talk to you for another hour.
Hey,
what do you think? Another hour?
I can go all night. I'm not in any rush. I'm not in any rush.
I think that we would love to have you back on the show is what I would love to do, especially having Peter on too. Like that would be, having another conversation, I think would be absolutely amazing.
Sure. I've got more stories, tons of them.
Yeah. I would love to. Honestly, I think it would be just so much fun to bring you back on.
Sure.
So guys, thank you so much for being here with us today. Dan, thank you so much. Lynda, I'm so happy to have you on as a co-host. I wish that you were going to be here next week, but we'll see you the week after.
I volunteer.
Do you? Yeah, you would
course.
do as a co-host too. That would be
Sure.
awesome. Because I know that we were. I know with Peter and stuff, like we were talking about that because we can't always, all of us always be here. My mouth stopped working for a second. That would be.
I'd love to fill in if you'd have me sometime.
Yeah, we would love that actually too.
Cool.
I think that would be. I really love this show. Actually, we've met so many amazing people. So thank you so much again. Guys, make sure that you are subscribed, share the channel. Lynda, Dan, thank you so much, guys. Have an amazing night and take care, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Make sure you subscribe and click the like button too. So, bye.
And listen to the Phantom Faction podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.